Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and this is We've Got Issues. We're filming today at Poirier Library in Coquitlam, and we'd like to thank the library for allowing us this space to carry out the interviews. And before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that our interviews do take place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of Coquitlam First Nation. So we thank the Coquitlam people who continue to live on the lands and to protect the lands and the waters and all that lies above and below. Today, I'm joined by Graham Stuart, who is the Chief Human Resources Officer at the City of Coquitlam. So thank you so much for joining us today, Graham.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it on this beautiful Friday afternoon.
It is a lovely Friday
It is.
afternoon. Can you tell us just a little bit about what you do as Chief Human Resources Officer, just on a day-to-day basis? What does your job look like?
Sure. I mean, and I like to think that I have one of the more interesting jobs in the organization. I
Okay.
mean, for some people, maybe not, but for me, it's great. So I get first and foremost, obviously, I'm a member of the administration and a public servant. So I oversee a team of HR professionals who enable the work of the organization so that our staff can go and do all the great work and enable council's priorities over, out in the community and then for the folks who are on the front line
So
serving
you
our
kind of the
residents.
glue that holds the
I wouldn't
home.
say I'm the glue. I think we're part of the support process that really
Okay.
enables a lot of that frontline customer service type work to
Okay.
happen. So my work is never boring, and the staff that I oversee do a whole bunch of things like recruitment for the organization, ensuring that we get the right people into the right roles. Occupational health and safety, which is obviously one of the more important areas that we
Right.
deal with. So making sure that we're not only compliant, but obviously continue to have our award-winning program there. Organizational development and training, which is working with our staff to ensure that we've got the right training for our staff, and focusing on our leadership development programs and things like that, and as well as building partnerships with in labor relations with our union colleagues.
Wow, that does sound like there's never a dull moment. That's a lot of territory to cover. Now, Coquitlam, I believe it's the 9th year in a row
It
that you
is.
received the Top Employers
It
Award.
is.
Can you tell us about that? What does
Sure.
it mean?
So the Top Employer Program is one of it's actually, so I've been with the organization for 10 years, and when I first started, my boss at the time was like, this award exists, we should really look at how it is we could achieve some of the things that would get this award. And I actually started by writing kind of the application for this award. So I'm quite familiar with the process. And then I,
Okay.
moved to other areas of the organization, and now I moved into this role. So the Top Employer Award really is about a celebration of the workplace culture of the organization. So it covers a whole bunch of different things, but it really talks about, how staff, serve the community, the types of things that the work that they do, and the types of, how it is they go about their day-to-day work. For me personally, it's one of the things that I think sets Coquitlam apart from, and I know we'll probably talk about it later, is the workplace culture.
Right.
Coquitlam is a great place to work. I can honestly say I've worked here, like I said, for 10 years, and it's the best place I've ever worked.
Well, tell us a little bit more about what does a people-focused culture or that type of culture, what does that entail? What does it look like?
Sure. So I think one of the things that really drew me to local government and to Coquitlam in particular is that it kind of sits in what we call the Goldilocks zone for municipalities. So it's large enough that you get to do a whole bunch of different and interesting things. We're not kind of sitting on our laurels where there's lots of great capital projects that are happening,
Right.
great initiatives out in the community, but it's also small enough that you really get to know the people who you work with.
And you get to see the changes that you're making.
Right, and it's about half of our staff live in the Tri-Cities, and
Oh,
a lot
that's
of them
good.
come to work because they get to make a difference in the community that they live in. And it's one of the things that drew me to the organization. I live in Coquitlam as well, and it's a great place to live, learn, work, and play. Right, it's a beautiful community, and it's a great place to be.
I think you're right. We're very fortunate to live in this area. There's so many good things happening here. And it sounds like Coquitlam is really investing in their employees.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that kind of investment really pays off for not only the employee, but for the residents that live here?
Right, and I think one of the things that's always interesting to consider as you look in a service-based organization, which is ultimately what we are.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like
it's true.
people don't always think of government as in the service industry, but that is what we are,
Yeah.
and good people is what make good service. Right, good people and supported people and people who are happy and excited to come to work is what leads to excellent services and things that we can provide to our community.
Yeah. No, and I think the award that Coquitlam it seems to be consistently getting is looks at things like training, wellness, and workplace culture. So you've mentioned a lot of things that Coquitlam does. Where do you think you really shine? Like what really stands out for Coquitlam?
One of the things that I enjoy the most is kind of the camaraderie and the culture around the organization.
Like a
Being able to,
community.
yeah, and being able to. I mean, I think I mentioned that about half of our staff live in the Tri-Cities, but like what that really means when it comes to like rapport that you build with the people who you work with. And it's like I'll use it's kind of a silly example, but I think it kind of strikes the heart. It's like a lot of the people here, it's like, oh well, like I coach their kid in baseball,
Oh,
and
you've got those connections.
and they're maybe they're, but one of their colleagues is their son's teacher or things like that. So there's a lot of like interconnection, which really leads to a lot of what I'll say is like cross-functional work in the workplace. And larger organizations, as you get bigger and bigger, it's easy to kind of get like siloed into their own individual areas of work. And one of the things that's great about here is that people have those relationships and like, oh, Johnny may be an engineer and I may be in whatever, but like our kids go to school, so like I have a question about this thing, and then you start talking about it and you're like, oh well,
So is that part of being in that Goldilocks
It
kind
is.
of spot where you're not too big, not too small?
It is, and I think it's also intention, right? I think
Okay.
culture isn't built by accident. Culture is
Right.
built by intention and by the people who make it happen. And I think that speaks a lot to kind of the direction and culture that council has created for staff. And I think it's a lot about the senior administrator, our CAO and a deputy CAO, who both have huge amounts of experience in these areas. There's intentionality there to be able to do that, to be able to have that cross-functional work, and it's encouraged, and it leads to a better product, and it leads to better services for residents.
Right. And so you were saying that council actually feeds into this process somehow. That you're saying that they're supporting this. Do they support it through supporting different programs, or what's their role in
Yeah,
this?
I mean, council provides strategic oversight, obviously, to the entire organization, including my area. So things like looking at budget allocations, things like that.
Okay, so they're saying you can do
So
this training.
Yeah,
and
or
this might- okay.
they're supportive of the work that we do, and I think it's been reflected in the organization's achievements over in not just in my area but across the organization. A top employer, a top green employer, a BC Municipal Safety Leader, a Workplace Wellness Award. Like those are all things that can't be done unless you have the support of kind of your strategic oversight
That's
body.
good to know. It's because that must make your job easier too if you're working with council to make things work, right?
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of projects go forward, like the Mundy Park Pool. We're seeing that big community center up on Burke Mountain. Coquitlam just put forward their first draft urban forest management strategy. So, what is staff role in sort of putting forward these things or making sure that these things move forward?
Sure. So I mean, I can kind of maybe put on my old hat. Before I took this role, I was the director of corporate planning for the city. So my role was to facilitate the strategic plan and business planning process for the organization, and that's where kind of where I mentioned like oversight from council and direction from council.
Right,
That's
okay.
really where that
Starting
comes.
to connect up.
Yeah. So like the role of staff is to enable council's priorities through our specific technical knowledge that we may have in areas, and talking about the role of public service in that and what it means to be a public servant. Like your role as a staff member at the city of Coquitlam or at any other municipality is to take council's direction and provide your technical expertise and understand that they're going to make the decision and that your job is to enable that decision.
So the direction comes from council, and then staff is what actually makes it, implements it, and
Yeah.
sort of on the feet on the ground and makes it happen.
So every year, council approves what's called the business plan, and the business plan is a list of priorities that are council's most important priorities for the year. So there's an opportunity for obviously council provides direction to those, and they get approved along with the budget, so that the budget and the priorities match.
Okay, so now we're in a situation where we have sort of some big changes in the city. We're seeing development, we're seeing effects of a changing climate, we're seeing all these things change. So how does sort of this continuous learning, because it sounds like there's a big investment in learning and leadership and development initiative, I think you said.
Yep.
How does that help us to prepare for all these changes? Like, how does that work together?
Yeah, and I think it's, you've hit on something there, that the environment around the organization and the community is changing. And I think part of our role is to ensure that we have a workforce that's able to address what some of those changes are. So we have an award-winning leadership development program that was recognized by by CAMA, which is essentially the Association of all the City Managers around Canada.
Oh, wow. So that's a national
It's a national
award?
body. Yeah, so that would have been about 8 years ago. So we have, so that program really prepares kind of our current and future leaders to step into some of those roles as people move on to different parts of their life or leave the organization.
Is that almost like a succession planning where you're having people moving up through the ranks?
It's partly that, and it's also partly for folks to get exposure to other parts of the organization and things that they might not get otherwise. But I think when it comes to continuous learning, I think that's the world's changing around us, and part of our role as a public body is to be able to position our workforce to be able to respond to those, whether it's how we serve our residents, how we serve the community, how we do things better so that we don't need as many staff, those types of things.
Yeah, so now you're human resources, you've got people coming and going all the time. What kind of folks are you looking for? What sort of opportunities are there, and what kind of people would you like to attract to the city as future employees?
Sure, and I think the great part about this is we have a huge range of the types of work that we do in our organization, right? So if you are, and people don't always think of local government as a place where they can really maybe start their career. So one of the things that I've done and continue to do is I work with a lot of I speak with a lot of graduating students about consider local government as an opportunity. If you're interested in government, it's a place that you can work. So you actually go
out and recruit and say, hey.
Yeah, it's part of our. So we have a strong co-op program. So part of that co-op program, I've sponsored co-op students in the past, and a couple of years ago, I was asked to go and speak in SFU to talk a little to their Masters of Public Policy students about a career in local government. So one of the things we have a huge range of opportunity, everything from recreation instructors to carpenters to engineers, planners. If you're interested in public safety, accountants, HR professionals, obviously, and a whole bunch of other things in between. And I think there's a great opportunity for people to consider a role in local government and to be able to make a difference in their community.
And a little bit of mobility within as well.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned a co-op program. Can you give us some examples of what kinds of positions there might be in a co-op program?
Sure. So it really depends on the year and depends on the need. So typically our groups in engineering will have a co-op program co-op student or two every year. In my area in human resources, we've had a co-op student in the past, and she's actually one of our current employees now.
Oh, well, that worked out well.
And so it's a great way to kind of get your foot in the door and to see if local government is something that's of interest to you. And I'd recommend anybody. I'm a former co-op student, not in local government, but at the federal government.
Okay.
That's how I started my career, and it's a as well as my boss started her career that way, and one of my colleagues started their career that way. It's a great way to kind of get your foot in the door.
Just get a taste of what you like or maybe don't like.
Yeah,
right?
it's pretty, it's a low risk opportunity.
So what lies ahead for City of Coquitlam and Human Resources? Like, how do you sort of foresee continuing to make Coquitlam one of the best employers there is?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, and I'll maybe do a shameless plug for an upcoming piece of work that's been on the business plan for this year, and we'll bring it forward later this year, and that's called the talent retention strategy. So that really looks at how we're going to build capacity within the organization so that we can meet the needs of today and set up ourselves up for a workforce of tomorrow, to be able to continue to meet the evolving needs of our residents, to be able to support all the great and interesting frontline work that's going on in the organization, organization, building those projects and those things that you talked about, ensuring that we get good value for the taxpayers of Coquitlam. One of the things we didn't get a chance to mention is we actually have a great occupational health and safety team and record at the city of Coquitlam. It's actually one of the best in the region, and as a result of those efforts, we over the last 5 years or so, we've managed to save Coquitlam taxpayers over nearly $7 million in terms of in terms of rebates and things like that we get back for that work that we do. So it's continuing that great work. I'm very lucky to have inherited a great team and standing on the shoulders of people who came before you to build on something that I think is really special.
So it's not just having happy, productive folks working with you who, it sounds like it can be a very fulfilling positions with opportunities and support, but it also makes sense financially or fiscally, right? You're saving residents money and creating a really wonderful workspace.
Yeah, it's a great place to work, and anybody who's interested in local government, or looking at seeing kind of the work that we can do, it's a great place to be, and there's a huge range of things that you can do. And that's the beauty of it. Whether you want to be outside, planting flowers, or working outside in the garden, or you want to be, working more with your hands in our public works area, providing safe drinking water. Those are all types of work that we get to do.
So should they call you?
They can actually check out our careers page. So all of our positions are posted publicly on the careers website. So coquitlam.ca/careers, and that will take you to our career portal where you get a chance to kind of see that. And you can also follow us on LinkedIn as well as through our various social media accounts to kind of see what's going on in the organization.
Well, it sounds awesome. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing that with us today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining us. I've been talking to Graham Stuart, who's the Chief Human Resources Officer with the City of Coquitlam.